The war room felt like a tomb. Commander Hyunwoo Kim stood at the massive holographic display, watching red dots spread across the star map like a disease. Each dot represented a dead world. The void swarm had eaten 3 entire solar systems in the past month, leaving nothing behind but empty space where billions of people once lived. "Sir, the Coalition Council is ready for your briefing," Lieutenant Tae-Jin Lee whispered beside him. His voice carried that edge soldiers get when they know the news is bad. Hyunwoo nodded, straightening his simple black uniform. Around the curved table sat beings that could level mountains with their bare hands. Vextar, the destroyer, towered. Over everyone else, his 4 massive arms crossed over a chest covered in battle scars. Each scar told the story of a conquered world. The Thrakari had never lost a war in their 3,000-year history. Next to him sat Crystal Lord Azeron, whose entire body looked like it was carved from living diamond. Light bent around him in impossible ways, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a hurricane. The Valorian Empire controlled half the galaxy's trade routes, and their crystal warriors were said to be immortal. Flamespeaker Pyrion didn't sit at all. The Stellarch floated above his chair, his plasma body shifting between different colors like a living aurora. He could ignite entire moons if he wanted to. His people worshipped stars as gods, and he was their highest priest. Then there was Hyunwoo, 5'8", 160 pounds, wearing standard-issue combat gear. No glowing eyes, no crystal armor, no mystical powers, just a human from Seoul who'd volunteered for the worst job in the galaxy. Why exactly are we listening to this person? Vexitar's voice rumbled like distant thunder, his 4 yellow eyes fixed on Hyunwoo with obvious disgust. "Your species cannot even survive in vacuum without artificial assistance." Crystal Lord Azeron's diamond features shifted into what might have been curiosity. "Indeed. Humans possess no natural weapons, no energy projection capabilities, no regenerative healing. Your lifespans are shorter than our military training programs. What possible tactical advantage could you provide?" Hyunwoo looked around the table calmly. He'd heard variations of this speech on every joint mission for the past 5 years. "We figure things out," he said simply. "Figure things out?" Flamespeaker Pyrion's plasma form flickered, with what looked like amusement. "The void swarm has consumed entire star systems. They exist partially outside normal spacetime. How does figuring things out defeat an enemy that reality itself cannot contain?" "Same way we always do," Hyunwoo replied, pulling up the tactical display. "We adapt." The hologram showed the swarm's advance pattern. 3 anchor points spread across the Kepler sector, each one a tear in reality that let more creatures through. The things that came through defied every natural law. They ate energy, fed on matter, and seemed to grow stronger the more you fought them. "Previous assault attempts have failed catastrophically," Azeron noted, his crystalline finger tracing battle reports. "The Draknari 5th Fleet engaged the outer perimeter and lost 60% of their ships before retreating. The Quantum Knights of Altair attempted a direct assault on the primary anchor and haven't been heard from since." "Because they fought the swarm on its terms," Hyunwoo said, zooming in on sensor readings. "Everyone's been trying to outmuscle, something that feeds on brute force. But look at the pattern here." He highlighted temporal distortions around each anchor point. "The swarm isn't just invading our dimension, it's testing it, learning how reality works here. Each attack teaches it more about our physics, our weapons, our tactics." Vextar leaned forward, his massive frame creaking the reinforced chair. "You suggest we cannot defeat it through superior firepower?" "I'm suggesting we shouldn't try to arm wrestle something that gets stronger every time we punch it." Lieutenant Minseo Park, the only other human in the room, stepped forward with a data pad. "Sir, we've finished analyzing the quantum resonance patterns. The anchor points maintain dimensional stability through harmonic frequencies. Disrupt the right frequency at the right moment, and the whole network collapses. Surgical strikes," Hyunwoo continued. "Small teams, precise targeting, minimal energy signatures. We slip in quiet, plant quantum charges on the resonance nodes, and collapse their dimensional gateway before they know we're there." Flamespeaker Pyrion's plasma form pulsed skeptically. Such an approach requires operating in close proximity to entities that exist partially outside our reality. The psychic trauma alone would drive most species insane. Most species, Hyunwoo agreed. But humans have been dealing with things that shouldn't exist for our entire evolutionary history. We called them nightmares, and we learned to function despite them. The room fell silent. These beings had conquered galaxies, wielded powers that could reshape reality, commanded fleets that could crack planets, but they'd never had to survive on a world where everything was trying to eat them. The mission parameters are simple, Hyunwoo continued. 3 teams, 3 anchor points, simultaneous strikes. We go in fast, hit the resonance nodes, and get out before the swarm realizes what happened. Vextar's scarred face showed grudging respect. And if your plan fails, human, Hyunwoo shrugged, then we try something else. That's what humans do. The assault transport Defiance shuddered as it punched through the outer defensive perimeter. Through the reinforced viewport, space itself looked wrong. Stars bent at impossible angles, and nebulae twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. This was what happened when something from outside reality tried to force its way in. 2 minutes to drop zone, Captain Minseo Park called from the pilot's seat. Her knuckles were white on the controls as she fought to keep the ship stable. Space-time distortions played hell with navigation systems. Hyunwoo checked his equipment. One final time. Plasma rifle, quantum demolition charges, emergency medical kit, 3 days of rations. Simple gear for a simple job. Beside him, Sergeant HFY Won did the same routine check, her movements precise and practiced. Ever fought interdimensional monsters before? She asked conversationally, adjusting her rifle's targeting scope. First time. You? Last Tuesday was my first dragon. This should be interesting. Behind them, the galaxy's legendary heroes prepared for battle in their own unique ways. Vextar was chanting Thrakari war prayers, while his 4 plasma cannons charged to full power. Each weapon could level a city block, and he carried 4 of them like they were pistols. Crystal Lord Azeron had gone completely still, his diamond body reshaping itself into blade configurations that defied physics. Edges appeared where edges shouldn't exist, creating weapons that could cut through space itself. Flamespeaker Pyrion floated in meditation, his plasma form cycling through colors that matched the stellar spectrum. When he fought, he literally became stellar fire. Planets had surrendered just from seeing him arrive in orbit. Contact in 30 seconds, Minseo announced. Sensors are going crazy. I'm reading biomass signatures the size of skyscrapers. Through the viewport, the first swarm nest came into view. It looked like a cancer growing on reality itself. Massive tentacles writhed through space, each one covered in eyes that blinked in patterns that made no geometric sense. The thing was feeding on a dead star, draining the last of its nuclear fire. Mother of... HFY whispered, then caught herself. That's bigger than Seoul. The transport bay doors cracked open, and the smell hit them immediately. It wasn't really a smell since they were in vacuum, but somehow the swarm's presence triggered something primal in human brains. The scent of rot and wrongness that every prey animal recognized. Remember the plan, Hyunwoo called over the comm. Vextar and Azuron draw its attention. Pyrion provides covering fire. We slip around behind and hit the resonance node. Simple. Plan, Corporal Donghyun Choi muttered, checking his demolition charges. I like simple plans. The heroes launched first. Vextar roared his war cry, a sound that could shatter glass 3 systems away, and opened fire with all 4 cannons. Plasma streams hot enough to melt battleship armor slammed into the nest's writhing surface. The creature didn't even notice. Crystal Lord Azeron came next, his blade arms extending into impossible geometric configurations. He carved through tentacles, the size of subway trains, crystal edges cutting dimensional space itself. Severed pieces of alien flesh floated away, only to regenerate moments later. Flamespeaker Pyrion ignited, becoming a miniature star. His plasma form blazed with the fury of stellar cores, temperature readings climbing past the melting point of most metals. He poured stellar fire into the nest's core, energy that could cook entire moons. The swarm absorbed it all. Every plasma. Blast! Every crystal cut, every stellar flame disappeared into its writhing mass and made it stronger. The nest pulsed with stolen energy. growing larger with each attack. It's learning, Hyunwoo realized, watching the creature's adaptive responses on his scanner. Every attack teaches it how to counter the next one. So much for Plan A, Ji-Hai said grimly. A massive tentacle lashed out at their transport. Min-seo threw the ship into a desperate evasive roll, but the alien limb caught their port engine. Alarms screamed as they went into an uncontrolled spin toward the nest's surface. "Brace for impact," Min-seo shouted. The Defiance crashed into the creature's writhing flesh with bone-jarring force. Emergency lights flickered as hull breaches vented atmosphere. Through the cracks in the viewport, they could see the nest's surface up close. It wasn't just alien flesh, it was composed of matter that existed in multiple dimensions, simultaneously, constantly shifting between states of reality. Hull integrity. At 40%, reported Lieutenant Tae-Jin Lee, blood running from a cut on his forehead. Life support holding, but barely. "We need to move," Hyunwoo said, grabbing his gear. "This thing is adapting to our presence. Every second we stay here, it learns more about us." The legendary heroes regrouped near the crash site, their confidence shaken. Vextar's 4 cannons had barely scratched the surface. Azeron's crystal blades dulled against flesh that existed in too many dimensions. Pyrion's stellar fire was being absorbed faster than he could generate it. "This is impossible," Vextar growled, his scarred face showing doubt for the first time in centuries. "How do we fight something that grows stronger from our attacks?" "We don't fight it," Hyunwoo said, studying his scanner readings. "We understand it." He pointed to the quantum resonance patterns flowing through the creature's mass. "Look at the harmonic frequencies. The nest isn't just feeding on energy, it's using our attacks to stabilize its connection to our dimension. Every shot we fire helps anchor it more firmly in our reality." "Then how do we stop it?" Azuron asked, his diamond features reflecting emergency lighting. Hyunwoo smiled grimly, checking his demolition charges. "We give it exactly what it doesn't expect. We get close enough to plant charges directly on the resonance node, and we do it quietly." The nest pulsed around them, alien flesh pressing against their damaged ship. In the distance, more swarm creatures were emerging from dimensional, tears drawn by the combat. Time was running out, and the real fight hadn't even started yet. The resonance node pulsed like a diseased heart at the center of the nest. Hyunwoo crouched behind a chunk of twisted metal, watching the patterns on his scanner. The quantum frequencies were getting stronger, which meant more creatures were pouring through the dimensional tear above them. "Range to target 200 meters, Sergeant Ji-Hai-1 whispered through the comm. "But there's about 50 tons of angry alien flesh between us and it." The node itself looked like something from a nightmare, a sphere of writhing tissue covered in eyes that blinked in sequence, surrounded by tentacles that moved through dimensions normal humans couldn't see. Every few seconds, reality would ripple around it, and more swarm creatures would materialize from thin air. Vextar fired another barrage from his quad cannons, the plasma streams lighting up the nest's interior like deadly fireworks. The creature absorbed the energy and immediately fired it back, forcing the Thrakari warrior to dive for cover. His battle armor, which had never been scratched in 3,000 years of warfare, now showed scorch marks and dents. "This is madness," he growled, reloading his weapons. "My people have conquered half the outer rim, but this thing treats our most powerful weapons like toys." Crystal Lord Azeron wasn't faring much better. His diamond blades had cut through everything from neutronium to crystallized time, but the swarm's flesh existed in too many dimensions. Every cut he made healed instantly, and the creature learned from each attack pattern. "The entity adapts to Valorian combat techniques faster than we can modify them," he reported, his crystalline voice showing strain. "My blade configurations are becoming ineffective." Flamespeaker Pyrion's situation was the worst. His plasma form flickered weakly, barely maintaining cohesion. The swarm had learned to drain stellar energy directly from his body, feeding on the very fire that made him who he was. "I am diminished," he admitted, his voice like dying embers. "This creature devours the light of stars themselves." Hyunwoo studied the tactical situation while Corporal Dong-hyun Choi laid down covering fire. The legendary heroes were losing, and badly. Every strategy they tried made the enemy stronger, but there was a pattern in the chaos. something his scanner was picking up that the others missed. The resonance frequency shifts every 37 seconds, he told Ji-Hai. But there's a 2-second window where it stabilizes completely. That's when the node is most vulnerable. 2 seconds, she repeated, from 200 meters away, through hostile territory, with perfect timing. Someone needs to get close. Enough to plant the quantum charges directly on the node, Hyunwoo said, checking his demolition pack. Manual detonation, synchronized with the frequency window. Lieutenant Tae-Jin Lee looked up from his position behind cover. Sir, that's a suicide mission. Nothing could survive getting that close to the resonance field. Maybe, Hyunwoo replied, adjusting his rifle for suppressed fire. But the alternative is dimensional collapse across 7 star systems. 30 billion people. Vexitar's 4 eyes widened in disbelief. Human, you cannot be serious. Even my warriors would not attempt such madness. Your warriors fight for glory, Hyunwoo said. Simply, I fight for my species. Before anyone could argue, he was moving. The swarm's attention was focused on the legendary heroes and their massive energy signatures. A single human with suppressed weapons barely registered on their dimensional senses. Hyunwoo moved like smoke through the nest's twisted corridors. His boots found purchase on surfaces that shouldn't exist, and his rifle took down smaller creatures with precise headshots. Behind him, Ji-Hai and Dong-hyun provided covering fire, their muzzle flashes lighting up alien flesh. 50 meters from the target. The resonance field was getting stronger, making his teeth ache and his vision blur. Reality bent around the node like heat waves, showing him glimpses of other dimensions where different physical laws applied. 25 meters. The quantum charges in his pack hummed with dangerous energy. One mistake, and they detonate prematurely, taking him and half the nest with them. But that wouldn't stop the dimensional invasion. 10 meters. He could see the node clearly now, its surface covered in eyes that tracked his movement. The tentacles around it writhed faster, sensing the approaching threat. The frequency window was coming up in 15 seconds, 5 meters. A massive tentacle, thick as a subway train and covered in razor-sharp spines, lashed out from his blind spot. Hyunwoo tried to dodge, but the creature was too fast. The appendage caught his left arm and tore it clean off at the shoulder in. A spray of blood. The pain hit like a lightning bolt. Every nerve in his body screamed at once and his vision went white. Behind him, he heard the legendary heroes gasp in horror. Vextar's war cry died in his throat. Azeron's crystal form went completely still. Pirion's plasma flickered with shock. They expected him to fall, to scream, to give up. Instead, Hyunwoo caught his severed arm with his right hand, pulled the backup quantum charges from its belt, and kept moving. Blood loss was severe but manageable. The frequency window was opening in 3 seconds. "Human!" Vextar roared. "How do you continue?" Hyunwoo reached the resonance node as reality stabilized around it. 2 seconds to plant the charges, 1 second to activate them, 0 seconds to get clear. He slapped the charges against the node's writhing surface and triggered the detonation sequence. The quantum explosion tore through dimensional space, unraveling the creature's anchor point to reality. The nest began collapsing in on itself, dimensional tiers sealing with thunderous cracks. As the resonance field died, Hyunwoo applied a combat tourniquet to his shoulder with practiced efficiency. The legendary heroes stared at him in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what they'd witnessed. "Minor setback," he reported over the comm, his voice steady despite massive blood loss. "Primary objective complete. Ready for extraction." The nest continued collapsing around them, alien flesh dissolving back into whatever dimension had spawned it. But the real victory wasn't the destruction of one anchor point. It was the moment when the galaxy's mightiest warriors realized that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from what you can endure, but from what you refuse to let stop you. The anchor point collapsed with a sound like reality tearing apart. Dimensional static crackled through the air as the swarm's foothold in normal space unraveled. Chunks of alien flesh dissolved into nothing, returning to whatever nightmare dimension had spawned them. Hyunwoo sat against a piece of twisted wreckage, calmly applying pressure bandages to his shoulder stump. The combat tourniquet had stopped the bleeding, but he'd lost a lot of blood. His face was pale, sweat beaded on his forehead, but his hands remained steady as he worked. Medical extraction in 18 minutes, medic Sujin Han reported over the comm from their backup transport. Can you maintain until then? Affirmative, Hyunwoo replied, checking his remaining ammunition with his good hand. Just a flesh wound. Vextar approached cautiously, his 4 massive arms hanging limp at his sides. The Thrakari warrior had seen countless battles, conquered entire star systems, but what he'd just witnessed shook him to his core. Your arm, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The pain must be overwhelming. How do your neural pathways continue to function? Hyunwoo looked up at the towering alien warrior. Pain is just information. It tells me I'm damaged, not defeated. But the trauma, Vexitar pressed, the psychological impact of such catastrophic injury, my people would enter battle madness, lose all tactical reasoning. That's because you fight to avoid getting hurt, Hyunwoo said, adjusting his rifle's configuration for one-handed operation. We fight knowing we probably will get hurt. Big difference. Crystal Lord Azeron materialized beside them, his diamond features reflecting the emergency lighting in prismatic patterns. His crystalline body could regenerate from almost any damage, reforming from scattered fragments if necessary. I do not comprehend, he said, his voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. My form reconstructs automatically from quantum templates. Physical damage is temporary inconvenience. But you possess no such regenerative capabilities. Nope, Hyunwoo agreed cheerfully. What you see is what you get. Meat, bones, and stubbornness. Then how do you continue combat operations with such permanent impairment? Sergeant Ji-Hai Won helped Hyunwoo to his feet, supporting his good side. Sir, the secondary anchor points are still active. Mission parameters call for immediate assault on targets 2 and 3. Roger that, Hyunwoo said, testing his balance. The blood loss made him dizzy but manageable. What's our tactical situation? Lieutenant Tae-Jin Lee consulted his scanner. Both remaining anchors show increased activity. The swarm knows we're here now. They're reinforcing their positions. Flame speaker. Pirion drifted closer, his plasma form flickering with uncertainty. The Stellarch had existed for millennia as pure energy, feeling no physical pain, knowing no permanent damage. What he'd witnessed challenged everything he understood about mortal existence. Your species fascinates me, he said, his voice like distant stellar wind. My people worship stars as eternal beings. We cannot fathom existence limited by flesh and bone, yet you demonstrate strength that transcends physical form. It's called being too stupid to quit, Corporal Donghyun Choi said with a grin, checking his demolition charges. Standard human operating procedure. Hyunwoo practiced drawing his sidearm with his remaining hand. The motion felt awkward at first, but muscle memory adapted quickly. Humans had been dealing with injured limbs for millions of years. Evolution had made them remarkably good at working around damage. Tell me, Azeron said, how does your species maintain morale when facing permanent disability? We don't see it as disability, Ji-Hai explained, helping Hyunwoo adjust his equipment harness. We see it as adaptation. My grandfather lost his leg in the Korean War, walked with a prosthetic for 60 years, never slowed him down. Your grandfather was a warrior? Vextar asked with interest. Farmer, she replied, but same principle. You work with what you have. The backup transport arrived with mechanical precision, its engines whining as it settled onto the unstable surface. Through the viewport, they could see the remaining anchor points pulsing in the distance, tiers in space-time that allowed more creatures to pour through. Sir, Tae-Jin reported, swarm reinforcements are massing around both targets. Estimated enemy strength has tripled in the past 10 minutes. Good, Hyunwoo said, accepting a plasma pack from Sujin to help with blood loss. Means they're scared. Scared. Pirion's plasma form pulsed with confusion. How does increased defensive posture indicate fear? They're changing tactics, Hyunwoo explained, settling into the transport's jump seat. Before they ignored us because we weren't a threat. Now they're taking us seriously. The legendary heroes followed him aboard, still trying to process what they'd witnessed. Vextar strapped himself into a reinforced seat designed for his massive frame. Human, he said thoughtfully. Your species has no natural weapons, no energy projection, no regenerative healing. You live for less than a century. Yet you continue fighting with injuries that would cripple my warriors. How? Hyunwoo checked, his rifle's power cell with practiced efficiency. We've been getting hurt and carrying on for 3 million years. Started with saber-toothed tigers and ice ages. This is just Tuesday. Your evolutionary history shaped such resilience? Azeron asked. Had to, Donghyun said, cleaning his rifle. Everything on Earth was trying to eat us. Couldn't quit every time we got scratched or we'd never have made it to the space age. The transport lifted off, heading toward the second anchor point. Through the viewports, they could see massive swarm creatures moving into defensive positions. The enemy had learned from their first encounter and wasn't taking any chances. 17 minutes to target 2, the pilot announced. Sensors show heavy resistance. Hyunwoo closed his eyes briefly, conserving energy for the coming fight. Wake. Pamihi when we get there. I need to rest up for round 2. The galaxy's mightiest heroes watched him settle into combat sleep with something approaching awe. They were witnessing something they'd never seen before. A warrior who treated catastrophic injury as a minor inconvenience and kept moving forward. It was their first lesson in what humans called resolve. 6 hours later, the final anchor point collapsed in a cascade of dimensional lightning. The Void Swarm's last foothold in normal space unraveled like a knot coming undone, sealing the tiers in reality with thunderous cracks that echoed across 3 star systems. Hyunwoo sat in the medical bay of the Coalition transport, letting Dr. Yeon-soo Kim work on his shoulder. The emergency surgery had gone well, considering they were operating in zero gravity while dodging interdimensional monsters. The wound was clean, the bleeding stopped, and the prosthetic attachment points were already being prepared. Full prosthetic integration in 3 weeks, the doctor reported, adjusting the temporary mechanical arm they'd attached. Combat readiness in 6 weeks, assuming standard recovery protocols. How about accelerated protocols? Hyunwoo asked. Testing the mechanical fingers. So you just lost a limb fighting creatures from outside reality. Maybe take some time off? Can't. Next deployment is in 4 weeks. The Centauri sector needs cleanup crews, and someone has to train the new recruits. Doctor. Kim shook her head with the resigned expression medics get when dealing with stubborn soldiers. Fine. But you're taking the pain medication whether you want it or not. Across the medical bay, the galaxy's legendary heroes sat in contemplative silence. They'd won the battle, saved 7 star systems, and prevented dimensional collapse across half the galaxy. But victory felt different now, smaller somehow, yet infinitely more meaningful. Vextar was the first to speak. His 4 massive arms rested on his knees, and his scarred face showed an expression his people rarely displayed: uncertainty. Human, he said slowly. In 3,000 years of warfare, I have never witnessed such persistence. Your species intrigues me. How so? Hyunwoo asked, adjusting the mechanical arm's grip strength. My people conquer through superior firepower and battle fury. We overwhelm our enemies with unstoppable force. But today, I watched you accomplish through quiet determination what all our weapons could not. Crystal Lord Azuran's diamond features shifted into new configurations, light bending around him in thoughtful patterns. The Valorian Empire has studied warfare for millennia. We catalog tactical approaches, analyze strategic doctrines, categorize combat methodologies, but we have no classification for what you demonstrated. What's to classify? Sergeant Ji-hai. One asked from the next medical bed, where she was getting treated for plasma burns. Someone needed to plant the charges. He planted them. Despite catastrophic injury, Azeron pressed, despite massive blood loss, despite permanent disfigurement, the psychological trauma alone should have rendered you combat ineffective. Trauma is what you make of it, Hyunwoo replied. Sure, losing an arm sucks, but I'm alive, the mission succeeded, and 30 billion people are still breathing. Good trade. Flame Speaker Pyrion drifted closer, his plasma form cycling through, colors that matched deep stellar formations. My species exists as pure energy. We know no physical pain, no permanent damage. If our forms are disrupted, we simply reconstitute from quantum templates. But You continue with irreversible harm. Because we have to, Lieutenant Tae Jin Lee said, helping Corporal Dong Hyun Choi adjust his bandages. Evolution didn't give us regeneration or energy forms or crystal bodies. It gave us stubbornness. The transport's communication system crackled to life. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy as news of the battle spread. Military academies wanted tactical analyses. Xenobiologists demanded sample data. Politicians wanted photo opportunities. But the story that spread fastest wasn't about weapons or tactics or political victories. It was about the human who lost a limb and kept fighting. Captain Minseo Park, her left eye covered with a medical patch from the final battle, pulled up the news feeds on her tablet. "Sir, you're going to want to see this." The reports were coming, in from hundreds of worlds. The Thrakari High Command had issued new military doctrines incorporating human persistence protocols. Valorian military academies were establishing meditation courses on flesh form determination. The Stellarch Council had composed new stellar songs celebrating the warrior who bled light. They're calling it the Battle of Kepler Prime, Minseo reported. But that's not what people are talking about. They want to know about the human who lost an arm and finished his mission. Vextar leaned forward, his yellow eyes intense. "You have changed how my people view warfare. For 3 millennia, we believed victory came through avoiding injury, overwhelming force, superior weapons. You have shown us something different, which is that true strength lies not in never falling, but in getting back up after you fall." Crystal Lord Azeron's crystalline voice carried new harmonics, frequencies his people associated with profound understanding. "The Valorian Empire will establish new combat doctrines based on your example. We shall call it adaptive continuation, the ability to maintain mission effectiveness despite severe impairment." "Just call it being human," Hyunwoo said with a slight smile. Months later, military instructors across the galaxy would teach courses on human-style persistence. Young warriors of a dozen species would learn about the soldier who lost a limb and carried on. The story would grow in the telling, becoming legend. But the real impact was quieter, deeper. When Thrakari warriors faced impossible odds, they remembered the human who didn't quit. When Valorian knights encountered setbacks, they thought of flesh and blood determination transcending crystal perfection. When Stellarch pilots faced overwhelming enemy forces, they recalled the warrior who bled light instead of plasma, yet burned brighter than stars. Back on Earth, in a small apartment in Seoul, Hyunwoo practiced using his new prosthetic arm while reviewing mission reports for the Centauri cleanup operation. When reporters asked about his legendary determination, he gave the same answer every time. "It wasn't legendary. It was just Tuesday. We had work to finish." The galaxy's mightiest heroes carried that lesson forward, spreading it from world to world, species to species. True strength isn't about avoiding damage or having superior weapons or mystical powers. It's about continuing, despite everything. Because someone has to, and today that someone is you. That's what humans call resolve, and it's the most powerful force in the galaxy.